Hello.
Great.
There you go.
Welcome, everybody. February 8th, Climate Solutions Caucus meeting. Today's meeting is mostly updates on how things are moving in the body and update from Rep. Williams on the press event that we had been discussing 2 weeks ago with a water table, that sort of thing. And then just to let all of you committee liaisons know, Rep. Rice has our list of committee liaisons, and we're hoping, since we have a little bit of time today, to be able to say, hey, Representative so-and-so from such and such committee, do you have any updates? And if you don't, that's fine. But just as an opportunity for everybody to hear, what is moving that's climate mitigation, resilience, emissions related from each committee. So do you want to start off with?
Make Big Oil Pay?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're familiar with Make Big Oil Pay, which if you're in the Climate Solutions Caucus, you're most likely a co-sponsor of that bill. It is in Senate Judiciary. My understanding is that it was taken up for testimony today was the first day that it came up. I'm getting thumbs up, so my update is correct so far. And they're going to be working on it for a bit, but it seems like the chair of the committee is in favor of it and moving it forward. We've got some allies. So the Senate kind of has it right now. And I think the hope is that we send it through judiciary and then it goes to finance and then appropriations. It may not need to go to finance. I'm not sure. So that's the update. House members, you can rest easy, the Senate. Yay.
It's about time they got it. Come on. Who's got a kid?
Okay.
Sorry.
What are you guys working on?
I can tell you.
So on Tuesday, House Environment and Energy did vote out H289, Renewable Energy Standard updating or modernization or whatever term you wish to use. Just as background, last year, we put in statute requirement for a working group for a slew of environmental nonprofits, our various utilities, multifamily affordable housing groups to join and meet for a series of meetings. We also had Vice Chair Sibilia from House E&E and Chair Sheldon from House E&E in those meetings. And so they came up with, a summary report of what they had discussed, some of the nuances, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities for updating the res. And in some, there, as an appendix or, a separate group of those stakeholders came up with some proposed language that the committee then ended up looking at, taking testimony on, and we did make some changes. But at a very high level, it's really looking at the fact that we have so many different utilities in this state. We have one, our largest utility, Green Mountain Power. We have two cooperatives. We have Washington Electric and Vermont Electric. We have Burlington Electric Department, and then several smaller municipal utilities that some of them are members of what you might hear referred to as VPSA, Vermont Public Power Supply Authority, some of whom are not. But basically all of these utilities are sort of at depending on their size, depending on when they started their path towards clean energy, they're in different places. So figuring out how to update the 2015 Renewable Energy Standard in a way that reflects that, 3 of our utilities are by statute considered, 100% renewable already. And then we have one utility that provides service to the vast majority of Vermonters. So obviously that utility has a larger opportunity to spread, costs and benefits across many, many more people as compared to like really small, maybe 1 or 2 staff for a really small municipal utility. So the res gets Vermont to 100% renewable electricity in a way that maintains flexibility for these different Vermont utilities, so that they can reduce costs and also foster innovation, to meet the bill's requirements. Green Mountain Power and Vermont Electric Co-op are required to get to 100% renewable by 2030. With other utilities, again, remembering that they're different, other utilities that are not already at 100% are required to hit that 100% by 2035. And for the utilities that are already at 100%, basically, as we've talked about electrification, either through electrified vehicles or heat pumps, as we see those three utilities that are at 100% start to see potentially, an increased demand from customers, that difference in increased demand, a portion of that also has to be from new renewables. So the challenge here, obviously, if we, keep some of our existing renewables within our renewable energy standards. So, a project that maybe was built in 2008 or 2012, that's necessarily driving an advancement towards more new renewables. So that's really the intent behind this bill, is to say, okay, we've done all of this work, and now how do we get to that 100% in a way that is as cost effective and affordable as feasibly possible for all of our different types of utilities.
Way to go.
I'm trying to see there, you probably have received some emails about community solar from some nonprofit groups in the state. So community solar is kind of an interesting term. Really, it doesn't actually, in the world of electricity, it doesn't necessarily mean anything per se. What it really is, I mean, it does, but what it really is you can do a larger project, not exactly where you are consuming electricity, and you can go into it with a bunch of other people.
So we could all go in, buy a plot of land, put an acre of solar on it, and then we would each meter out and get the generation on our utilities.
Right. And so another term that you might hear is virtual, because you're not right next to it. So you're virtual or offsite group, hence lots of people, net metering. Utilities look at their electricity and energy options, and depending on where they're buying it from, or depending on if they own the plant that's generating the power, they might be able to get that electricity anywhere from sometimes, depending on the moment, -cents per kilowatt hour, which makes no sense, up to 3 cents, 5 cents, 8 cents, and higher. Net metering, depending on the utility, it can land at around 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So where utilities are looking at these larger systems is, what does that mean compared to other electricity that we can purchase? So there is a challenge there, because individual Vermonters want to be able to have this option to do this type of energy project. And utilities are looking at, are there other cheaper forms of electricity that we could purchase in exchange? So all of this is to say, House E&E made, some slight tweaks. Generally, the bill is really structured off of a lot of the discussion and work amongst those stakeholders who live and breathe this every day. It does not do everything. It does not necessarily address, how do we and how do we cite renewables into the future? It does not necessarily, it clearly, like, I think one of the things that your committee may discuss when it comes to you is
Senate Natural Resources.
Senate Natural Resources, yes, because you're in 2 over there in Senate land. One of the things you might end up discussing is, okay, so what is there, what type of alternative program might there be for that virtual group net metering concept?
But if you were a House member thinking about, how am I going to vote on this? Coming on the
Generally,
floor, what would you?
generally, this is, if we don't move a bill like this forward, then we will not necessarily be seeing more advancement from renewables. And frankly, other states are moving in this direction. And, making sure that we're not left behind in terms of market transformation, making sure that as we have more electricity demand from driving, from heating, making sure that that's not necessarily just coming from whatever type of energy, but that we're directing where that might come from. That is what this bill really aims to do. But we do have many other committee members in here. Oh, one other thing. So all of this is to say, if you hear, oh, but the res doesn't do this, the answer might be yes. The res is not, this is really about percentages to 100% by when and who has to do what in terms of which utilities. So there are other items that are going to have to be addressed in other bills, like how do we make sure lower income Vermonters, can afford their rates? How do we properly, how do we continue the conversation of citing renewables, that sort of thing.
And if folks had questions, they're not on the committee, they're thinking about how to vote, what would you recommend?
You can come find me. We also have one, two, do we have other committee? Three.
And
We
what
have
was the vote out of your committee?
911.
Okay. Good job.
And that is not a double entendre.
So let's,
We understand the vote.
let's take, I see John first and then Dara, did you have your, and then, yeah, okay.
This community solar piece really needs to be addressed and understood, because I've got really strong climate change advocates who are saying this is horrible, don't support this. And these are really strong, like, we gotta fix this problem. But, well, I don't understand it, but why didn't the committee fix it so that these advocates are on board?
Well, we did make progress, I would say, within the bill. When we first got the bill, there wasn't language related to what that future might look like. The language that is in there right now is calling for a report due by January 15th, 2025, to come up with a proposal for what group net metering might look like. In particular, though, for multifamily affordable housing entities, and also to address, the language is a little wordy, but also to address lower income, mobile home communities, that sort of thing. So one of the things that I think, alluding to the Senate Natural Crew, that I think, given what we're hearing from our constituents, that you guys may end up talking through is, where does that report language take us? Does it take us far enough? What more might we be able to do to address this moving forward? Because it's something that I think a lot of Vermonters are very mindful of.
We certainly don't want our caucus members voting against it, but that's the path we're heading in.
Yeah, thank you, Rep. I think if you are in the camp where you are unsure how you're going to vote on the res, we should have a conversation as a caucus, because the point that you're raising is really critical. And I know Heartland, I know exactly who you might be hearing from.
Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. We're hearing from the same people. And I think at the very least, we need to get some answers to what the report is actually going to be doing. And I don't want you to feel like you're in a position where you're like, I hope the Senate fixes it, because that never feels good either direction. You may end up in that spot. So, okay, I think my next person, did you have okay, go ahead, Chip, you were next.
Oh, so I guess I wanted to just point out, Hardwick Electric has opened in the event. I'm wondering also how we might be collecting data on some of this progress, but Hardwick Electric opened a substantial solar field 2 years ago, and they're powering, I think, between 3,000 and 5,000 homes with it at this point.
Yeah.
And it's a really good adventure for a small electric company like Hardwick Electric. The other point when I installed my solar, the company was offering more or less a community solar setup, so that they would manage everything. They would install the units and they would manage everything, pay me a rental fee, and reach out to my community to get on that solar power.
Yes.
And I thought that was really a I've always been a supporter of community solar. I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense if you can't afford to, put a $30,000 solar unit on your property, go in with your neighbors and see what you can do and get it. Because I still see that installing heat pumps can be prohibitive on your electric bill at this point if you're not making your own power. And I was fortunate enough to do both. I make my own power and I put the heat pump in, and it's working out pretty well.
Thank you for that point. I think we have Michelle next and then Phil. And then Will, did you raise your hand down? Is someone raise? Oh, sorry, it was Avram.
I actually.
Esme, okay. Esme, you were first. Sorry, you're.
Oh, well, I'm curious about how we can stay informed about what proposed alternative facilities are coming up with as soon as possible to alleviate some of these anxieties, because I think we're worried that it's gonna come time and then there's still not gonna be a plan.
Yep.
And so.
That's a great, I will make a note of that.
And hopefully the advocates in the room are listening loud and clear that there's maybe some concerns about this that should be, yeah, so let's keep bringing up some of those things. So it sounds like what might help folks feel more comfortable is if they knew that there were plans in place by the utility companies to address this, and maybe folks haven't heard those yet. Is that kind of to your
Or what
point?
those plans look like, just like, and I know they're still coming together, but like, just so it's not like, oh, it's like
And then-
cake is baked already at the end, but it's throughout the process of what people are thinking of, so that it can be sort of democratic and we can participate and communicate with our constituents about what
Yeah.
alternatives are being proposed as a replacement to like offset group,
Yes,
especially.
that's a great point. Okay, and then I think Michelle, you've been patient, I think.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay.
I must be
If I
raising
could-
my hand randomly because I don't have anything to say.
Okay,
If
and
I,
so then I
one-
saw.
one sec,
Phil.
there are, many of the utilities, when they testified, presented examples of, solar arrays that their customers or their cooperative members or whatnot can currently participate in. That gets into the details of how the different programs vary, but we can add that to, sort of the background information.
Yeah,
And if instead of like, having constituents go watch testimony, like if there was a way to like really easily show them, like, here's
Yes. I
place
think,
A with B or whatever.
I think what would be helpful is maybe we'll work with our advocate partners to understand some materials that would be helpful to explain what is in the res now. So at the very least, you all have good information. But then if you disagree with the policy, then that's a different conversation, but at least getting you the information about what's going on. So then I think Phil, you were next, and then I have Kate, Avram, and then Sarita.
Thanks. So the elimination of group net metering is a big problem with me. And I'm not sure what the problem is we're trying to fix. I mean, initially, these systems were put in and given high rates, really to start the process, to encourage developments as people learned. And the PUC now can set the rates. So, they have the power. If they're saying, no, this power costs too much, they can decide what the rates are. And we are shutting the door on businesses that can't do it on site, on apartments, lower income folks. And unless you have your home exactly situated just right, the door is shut for you to do this. And I would prefer us, continuing to keep it and modifying it, because now the economics have all changed and things have changed. So.
Thank you, Phil. And then, so next up, we have Kate and then Avram, but did you want to?
Well, the PUC goes through a biennial net metering process, review process. And just that's another area, this bill really doesn't dig into net metering, except for
Eliminated.
Except for eliminating.
Except for metering. But that next proceeding is, I think it's in March. I think it's like next month. But so your point's really valid.
So Kate, then Avram, then Sarita, and then we're looking at 12:33, so we got like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk with anybody who is concerned about the virtual net metering question as well. It's something I dug into a lot while we were looking at this bill. I think for further context, it's not also just the rates for net metered clients. It's also the infrastructure that's required in order to be able to handle the electricity that is coming off those usually much larger solar installations at peak moments when there isn't storage capacity. So it requires grid upgrades to be able to handle that flow of electricity because the electricity is being produced during the sunniest parts of the year when we don't need it because we use electricity in the winter. So there's a mismatch between production. So on-site use that doesn't flow back onto the grid is not as difficult for the infrastructure to handle. That's what we heard from the utilities themselves.
I could counter that.
This.
Highest rates go right on the sunniest warm days.
There's also information about changing peak. Yes, there's lots of interesting conversations with this. Guys, we're so nerdy.
What I'm hearing is, it does sound like it would be helpful if there
Yeah, we
were
need
to
to
be,
info.
you know, a separate meeting to answer questions, have this type of dialogue.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Let's do it. And then who did, Avram, sorry, go ahead.
I would be happy to talk with you or anybody else about this one-on-one. But there are a lot of issues, and we use the word equity a lot. This is absolutely a ratepayer equity issue. Because in
I
the
agree.
example that Chip gave a few minutes ago, the project that Hardwick Electric built, and good for them, is from a ratepayer point of view, much better for the ratepayers than the same exact project if it was a net metering project, period, except for those ratepayers that are part of that net metering project. And for those utilities that are at or near very near 100%, it causes them to they have to accept net metering if it's on their system. And that in effect pushes their existing power supply off their system, and they don't have the advantage of the lower cost. So that's and in the end, that affects all the ratepayers. So that's the issue that is difficult here.
Yes, this is, we need a separate meeting. Sarita, and then we're gonna try to wrap on this unless someone had a burning thing. Maybe Bob.
Maybe the meeting you're talking about, but I read through the bill and I didn't understand any of it. No, I really didn't. So, I mean, and I think I represent my constituents.
Yep.
You know, they're gonna want to know, is there enough electricity?
Yep.
And what's it gonna cost me?
Yep.
Period. They're not gonna want to dig into the weeds and know about, I mean, I'd love.
But we
to
can
hear-
provide that also.
Yes.
The
So
weeds.
the question I had is hydro, I couldn't figure out the hydro, if we're going to stop using hydro and also nuclear power.
We are not stopping using hydro. It depends on the size of the hydro. But, you know, if anything, there will be an opportunity for some of the municipal utilities to be able to count some of their existing hydro as renewable. And nuclear is not part of this proposal.
Great questions. Okay, Bobby, you had your hand. Go ahead, and then we're gonna.
Okay, I'll be really quick. So the handout that Rev passed out last week, I mean, the last time we met, said that no new biomass. In my district is the Rygate Power Plant, which is 3% of our state's energy portfolio. They're facing a situation right now where because of an Act 250 challenge, they're being delayed in the wood pellet project that they were doing as a satisfaction of the requirements that they become proficient. So I'm trying to be quick here. If for some reason there's a lapse and their PPA gets canceled, because there's no new biomass allowed, will they be able to get a new renewable PPA? Or will it be counted as new biomass just because of this deadline?
Whoa,
That is a
great
very
question.
great question that we should follow up offline.
Okay.
I feel like I want the answer. I don't know what I want the answer to be, even for myself. So I would love to know what the regulatory answer.
One person objection, one neighbor objection.
Yeah.
Okay, what was next on our agenda? before
Next on
we-
our agenda was
Great
a
conversation.
update regarding advancements in terms of planning. And then if you wanted to say something about transportation, the climate related bill, And then if we had time, but we probably don't again. Okay. We were going to do committee liaison updates, but
The event is that we have developed is happening at the end of this month. We believe we're nearing a lock on times and locations, but it will be in the State House at multiple locations. There will be flood tables with tarps and electricity. There will be a gallery walkthrough of photos demonstrating our changing climate in Vermont, and there will also be a presser event tied to a press release. So stay tuned for more information on that. Very much looking forward to it. The vibe for me, Science Museum.
Yes. And can I just say, who saw the press release on the governor's, on his press yesterday? Did folks see that? Okay, the maps.
Yeah.
Highly recommend if you can read that. He is coming for our bills as it relates to flood recovery as a way to push saying that we are not doing a response to the housing crisis. We have to counter that. And I think this is in some way a way that we can do that, where we have a little bit of levity because it's a river table, but this will get us a little bit of media, hopefully to talk about the flood recovery bills and be sure to counter the narrative that to do climate resiliency work is somehow anti-development or anti-affordable housing, because that's the dynamic he's setting up with his most recent press release is what I'm.
Yeah, it's a false dichotomy.
It is.
to be clear, those maps, I mean, I wasn't sure where that particular map even came from. We're still very much in active discussion on this bill. It does propose 3 different tiers related to Act 250 jurisdiction, but how those tiers are defined, tier 3, the most, sacred, critically concerned.
Your waterfalls.
You must always save this area of Vermont. It's really not fleshed out how that's defined at this point in the bill. So that was a pretty misleading, scary fright tactic from my perspective as someone sitting in committee.
Back of the napkin.
Go ahead, Will.
One quick thing, that map was designed to be scary on social media. It's not designed to be accurate.
Yeah.
But that is the tone we can expect for the rest of the session.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So Jonathan, did you have anything else on the river table piece?
No.
Okay, then do we want to?
Bring your smoke.
Really quick. Thank you, Melissa, for explaining why the governor would have done that. We were all sort of like, that was
Yes.
bizarre. That was truly bizarre. But like, what's the point to spread misinformation coming for the flood recovery? bills?
Exactly, that's
Gotcha.
exactly, because I mean, he named S213, which what you're gonna hear about, hopefully we'll have Senator Bray come in and talk about it, but we're talking dam safety. We're talking about high risk, poor quality dams, meaning 50% more likelihood, there's a 50% chance or more that people will die if this dam is not properly fixed. Like the things that we are going to be debating in flood recovery are going to be very critical to your constituents. And we're already hearing that's costing too much and that it's hurting housing. So just get ready for that.
Gotcha.
So you got me on my horse.
You're not passionate about
I'm
that.
not passionate. I said Ludlow, Chester, yeah. Sorry, Molly, go ahead.
That's all right. Transportation, I just want to note that there are 5 of us members here from Transportation Committee.
Gold
And
star.
we are taking, I'm going to be really quick, a bill 693, you can look at it. We're sort of looking at it side by side with the bill that the administration proposes, and we're putting our stuff, it's going to be our bill. And we are, a lot of different parts to it about, support for public transit. We're taking some money from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act for public transit, for bike ped, et cetera. But the most exciting thing we just heard from the state treasurer, and we are going to ask him, and he agreed, I think, he said, that he would sort of look at the possibility of different plans for funding, like Western Climate Initiative, like what's New York State doing? In other words, to pick up the pieces of what was left on the table from the collapse of the TCI and look at how that might be a funding mechanism for all the improvements we want to do for climate and resilience and lower transportation costs, as well as for our whole transportation system, which needs, we need smooth roads for bikes and stuff like that. So stay tuned. We're in the process. Unfortunately, we have lost our wonderful attorney. That's another issue of I think maybe just to bring up is that like 5 members of the Ledge Council
Yes.
have left, you know, and
Yes.
so there are some issues there that I don't know how much anyway.
No, but it impacts
Very
our,
upsetting because she's leaving next week.
Yep.
And we're trying to get our bill together and she's leaving next week because she's got a job, really wonderful job working on climate. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say for now, but
Thank you. That's very exciting about the treasurer being
Yeah.
willing to do that, though.
yeah.
So dam repairs comes to our committee on the capital budget.
you're gonna hear about it.
So we haven't taken it up yet. That's my
Yeah.
committee report. That we
Hey.
haven't seen the dams yet, the
And-
dams.
We're including a bill, I think it was Mark Macaulay actually had introduced, so we have looked at, I would check, when S213 wraps up next week, there are some pieces of House bills that have been put in it, and if you
Okay.
see things related to flood that feel relevant to dam safety, river corridors or wetlands, feel free to flag me down.
Yeah. We haven't
But-
taken up A&R either. That's part of our budget. So
Fine.
both of those.
Although we just heard A&R today and they're taking 2, they were limited service positions, but making them, or proposing to make them permanent and via base funding for 2 dam safety roles, as well as another river.
Yeah.
Or is it flood? So, I mean, there's recognition of the
There
need
is.
and the fact that we need to plan better.
If anyone has any questions about the BA and flood mitigation and recovery, please come see me.
So with that note, we are right at 12:45, so we're gonna wrap up. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for doing pizza, Jordan. Yeah, thank you.